So, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 12 months progress report. My name is Virág Róna, and I am a second-year resident at the Department of Prosthodontics. My PhD topic is the polymers in dentistry. My supervisor is Zoltán Géci, and my scientific methodology supervisor is Kata Kelemen. My mission is to research the usage of polymers in dentistry, mainly focusing on chitosan, and my vision is to find some new alternatives that can be used in clinical dentistry. I have two ongoing projects. The first one started in September and the second one started in November. The first one is the effect of chitosan on the number of streptococcus mutans in saliva. It's a systematic review and a meta-analysis. Streptococcus mutans is a facultatively anaerobic gram-positive coccus which can be commonly found in the human oral cavity. And the first person who wrote down an association between this bacteria and caries was Clark in 1924. Streptococcus mutans has a very important role in the development of dental caries by forming an EPS-rich and low pH milieu. And globally, it is estimated, according to WHO, that almost 2 billion people suffer from caries of permanent teeth. Polycationic polymers are antimicrobial polymers which has some growth inhibiting and destructive properties, and these polymers has two main functional groups. One of it is a cationic group and the other one is a hydrophilic group. And with the help of the cationic group they can form some pores on the cell membranes, and by this they can cause the apoptosis of the bacteria and of the cells. So our aim is to investigate the efficacy of polycationic polymers on the number of streptococcus mutants in saliva. The clinical question was that how efficient is chitosan in reducing the number of bacteria. Here you can see the PICO that we used, and our hypothesis was that chitosan reduces the number of streptococcus mutants. Here you can see the search key that we used, and all in all we got 6,258 articles. Out of these, after the duplication removal and the title abstract selection, we got 4 eligible articles. Out of these 4, only 3 could be used in our meta-analysis part and 4 in the systematic review. As you can see, the baseline values has a high heterogeneity in these articles, and the reason for this could be that in every single individual person, the oral bacterial flora is different, and actually this bacterial flora is affected by several factors throughout life. But all in all, we can say that in every case there was a fall-off in the bacteria numbers, but only in the third article was this fall-off significant. And of course, these are very few articles to rely on and to have significant results, but we can say that in the future it would be great to have more studies because chitosan seems to be a promising future agent for antimicrobial effects. So the strengths of our analysis is that all of the articles were randomized controlled trials, and this is the first meta-analysis in this topic. And the limitations are that our statistician had to get imputed standard deviations and correlations in 2 cases, and only 3 studies were available for this analysis. So in conclusion, we can say that chitosan reduces the number of streptococcus mutans, and the implication for practice is to use chitosan as a primary and a secondary prevention tool for caries, and the implication for research is that more clinical and in vitro studies should be needed to have more reliable results, more significant results, and higher evidence level, and actually, in my opinion, also animal studies should be needed. So our manuscript is already submitted into the Journal of Molecular or Microbiology, and right now we are waiting for the answer. It is under review and we are hoping for a positive answer. So the second project is the effect of chitosan on the number of Enterococcus faecalis. It's also a systematic review and a meta-analysis. So let's talk a bit about the background. Nowadays, the main reasons for losing a tooth or extracting a tooth is 1, caries, 2, endodontic diseases, and 3, periodontal diseases. So my first topic, as you can see, is about the caries part. My second topic is about the endodontic diseases part, and we have future plans to also go into the periodontal diseases part. So Enterococcus faecalis is a gram-positive bacteria which is capable of growing in also anaerobic and aerobic environments, and this bacteria is commonly detected in asymptomatic and persistent endodontic lesions. And the prevalence in these kind of infections to this bacteria ranges from 24 to 77%. And there is one main thing that you need to know is that nowadays, like the gold standard irrigation solution in endodontic usage is like the sodium hypochlorite. And this is why why we choose sodium hypochlorite to this analysis, because our question is that could chitosan be a new alternative for this material? So the clinical question is that how efficient is chitosan in reducing the number of Enterococcus faecalis in the root canal? Here you can see the PICO. We had two main outcomes. One of it is the number of bacteria in CFU per milliliter, and the other one is also the number of bacteria in inhibition rate. So our hypothesis was that chitosan reduces the number of Enterococcus faecalis in the root canal. And here you can see the clinical and the research implications. It's directly to decrease the number of bacteria and indirectly to decrease the endodontic lesions. So here is the search key that we used for our research. All in all, we got 889 articles, and out of these, after the duplication removal and the title extract selection, we got 10 full-text eligible articles. And here on the next two slides, you can see the main outcomes. So the CFU per milliliter part, as you can see, we used 6 articles for this. And if you check this forest plot, you can see that in 3 articles, there was no significant difference between using chitosan and sodium hypochlorite, but in 3 cases, there was significant differences. And between these 3 cases, where we found significant difference, 2 of them said that chitosan was in favor, and 1 of them said that sodium hypochlorite was in favor. And so we decided to dig deep down into the methods of these articles, because it was very interesting that why is that only this one article said that sodium hypochlorite was more significant. And actually, in the last 2 cases, so in Bullar and in Jaishwal, the study design was the same. So we think that the reason for the last significant result could be some measurement error, because all of the other results are tending to chitosan, that chitosan is at least as good as or even better than sodium hypochlorite. And in the second part, you can see that we made 2 subgroups for the inhibition rate. One subgroup was when chitosan was below 1%, and the second subgroup is when chitosan was equal 1% or more than 1%. And in every article, the chitosan concentration and the sodium hypochlorite concentration was increasing together. So we can say that nowadays in the general dental usage, we don't really use sodium hypochlorite, which is below 1%. We use them above 1%. So if we check the second part of the figure, then we can say that when the chitosan and also the sodium hypochlorite was above 1%, then the chitosan was even as good as or even better than sodium hypochlorite. So here you can see that right now we are at the manuscript writing status, and I already finished the results, the discussion, the introduction, and the methods part, and I have to work on the supplementary materials and the abstract. And here you can see our journal selection, and I'm really hoping to finish all of the work in September, and I'm hoping to submit this article in October. So as an overview, the first project is already submitted. The second project is I'm planning to submit it in October. And I want to thank you for your attention with a quote from Jane Austen. It isn't what we say or think that defines us, but what we do. Thank you.
My question is, what is the form of chitosan that you want to investigate in your future study?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mentioned that in the future we want to also investigate like the periodontal diseases and the usage of chitosan in periodontal diseases, and the form that we would want to use or we would want to investigate is a gel form, because when you are using chitosan in a gel form, it can have like this kind of retard effect or long-lasting effect when putting it into periodontal pocket. So yes, this is the form that we want to use.
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. I have two questions. The first one would be, I noticed that the chitosan has actually really good effects also on caries and maybe endodontic disease and maybe also on periodontal disease. But the question would be if there are any adverse effects of using chitosan, maybe local adverse effects.
Yeah, this is one of the main reasons that we started to have more and more researches on these kind of materials like chitosan, because it doesn't really have any side effects, any adverse effects. Because when you you use sodium hypochlorite. Sodium hypochlorite, we all know that has this kind of local irritational effect, but chitosan, no, it doesn't have any effect on the oral flora or like the oral tissues or anything.
Okay. And the second question would be if in your second study, I was wondering if the studies that you included in the analysis used the same concentration of hypochlorite between each other, or they use different concentration, because we know that if you use a higher concentration, even you risk local adverse effects,
yes,
but it has a better antimicrobial effect.
Yeah, well, in the studies that we checked, they didn't use the same sodium hypochlorite concentration, but as I mentioned before, they used increasing concentrations in both cases. Like when they increased the sodium hypochlorite, they increased also the chitosan concentration. So with lower chitosan, lower sodium hypochlorite, higher chitosan, higher sodium hypochlorite. And this is the way that they used.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the answers. I have a question. You showed that in the first project you had only 3 studies, if
yes.
I remember. And I'm wondering, what is the minimal number of studies that you can use for such a meta-analysis?
3.
I am not so very expert on
yes.
this field, but 3
yes,
seems to be so low that...
Unfortunately, there were no more studies available, because we really wanted to make it when the method is exactly the same. Of course, these are 3 studies, but the methods and everything was exactly the same, because all of the articles used chewing gum, and they used chitosan as a chewing gum material, and after the people chewed like this chitosan-containing chewing gum, then they took samples from the saliva of these people, and yes, it's 3 articles, but there were no more outside in the literature. This is why I thought that it would be great to have more clinical and in vitro studies to have more reliable results. So this is for the future.
And was also the saliva sampling method the same in all the 3 studies? Because
yes.
Okay.